back to another episode of Inside SFPS. My name is Cody Donarski, Public Information Officer with Santa Fe Public Schools. And today I am joined by one of my favorite people in Santa Fe Public Schools. This is going to be part 1 of 16 of the series between her and I. I would like to introduce Miss Sonya Gunter. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm well. So for the people who don't know, you are the Chief Data and Analytics Officer?
Yes.
Is that your correct title?
Yes.
Okay. You were my former office neighbor, fellow podcast and comedian aficionado, rock star, as we just both blare out our music, and both talk really loudly on the phone.
Yes. I feel like we never needed the door open between our two offices. We could hear everything and we could just communicate through the wall. It was perfect.
Yeah, never needed to open the door. If the door was locked, that's fine. We just talked in a normal thing. And I think I would just compete with you and try and talk louder on the phone, even though you were in a completely different office with a wall and a door separating us.
Exactly.
We're not very quiet people.
We are not. That's why we're friends.
Yes, exactly. I'm very excited for this episode. This is an episode that you've basically begged to be on.
My fans begged me to do an episode.
I know. They were just beating down the wall to make sure that you were on the podcast. I'm really excited because you and I have got to know each other very well, probably since the beginning, when we started moving back after COVID in April of 2021, because I moved in next to you, or we were both kind of moving into the new offices together. And it's funny because we never really worked together previously, maybe a few things here and there, but nothing like that. So I think this is going to be very fun. Hopefully we keep the profanity down on this episode.
We're going to do our best.
Yeah, we're going to try. Sorry, Superintendent. So let's start. So you are quasi-local because you were originally born in Taos, correct?
Yes. My entire family is from Taos. Yes.
And then when did you kind of move down to Santa Fe?
I believe I was in second grade when we moved to Santa Fe officially. So yeah, I was second grade.
Second grade. And then you obviously are a product of Santa Fe Public Schools. You're very proud of it.
I am. I started first at Nava, and then I moved over to Sweeney, and then Alameda, and then, of course, Capitol High School.
Did you go to school with Chris Lopez?
No, I think we were around the same time, but we were in different locations.
Okay, because I know he was at Sweeney, too, when he started.
Yeah, I think he's way older than me, though.
Yeah, Chris, did you hear that? Remember, Sonya said that, not me. And so you went and you graduated from Capitol.
Yes.
You are a proud Jaguar.
Yes, I am.
And then where did you go to school?
So after I graduated from Capitol, I got my undergrad at UNM, as well as my teaching certification and my master's. And then I received my EDS from Arkansas State University.
Did you know that you wanted to be a teacher when you left high school, or when you were going through high school? Did you know that you wanted to be a teacher?
Absolutely not.
Really?
No. In fact, my whole plan was to move to New York City and to work for a German radio station called ZDF. And I was really excited. And unfortunately, life takes you on a different path sometimes than what you think you're going to do. And I found myself one day, I was working at my parents' store in Taos, and I said, you know what, I'm going to start looking at graduate programs. And it was, the internet was still relatively new. And I was looking at the Daily Lobo, which is the UNM online newspaper. And I saw a program for teaching certification. I thought, I'll just look into it. Before I knew it, I was in the program, and I had my first class of kiddos at DeVargas Middle School.
Did you just kind of like, this sounds interesting? And because you don't have really a connection to education, right? Like, I feel like most people kind of their gateway into becoming a teacher or, principal or, in education is their mom or their dad were in it, or grandfather or whatever. So you didn't have any real connections to education, did you?
So I actually did. Okay. My grandfather was a longtime PE teacher in Taos. Mm-hmm. He also was a principal for a time as well. And I have numerous aunts and uncles who were and cousins who are also teachers. So I do have some educators in my family. But yeah, my dad, my whole life kept saying, you need to be a teacher. He thought you need to be a teacher. And I'm like, ugh, no, that sounds terrible. And then it was like, I'll try it out. And then, you know what? After a hot minute, it was just like, I love this. This is so much fun.
So what grade did you have when you were at DeVargas?
I had 7th and 8th grade. Yeah, so 6 years middle school, and talk about your first teaching experience. I mean, it is definitely trial by fire with those little guys.
Oh, I'm sure. And I know Chris had mentioned on the last episode, but he had said he loved the middle school as well. Mm-hmm. And you were another one of those crazy people that likes the middle school.
Yeah, I thought I'd never leave middle school. After 6 years, I was a couple years at Alameda, and then I moved to Las Vegas, Nevada. I taught there for 2 years, same deal, 7-8, and moved back, taught at, I'm sorry, I think I said that backwards. First it was DeVargas for 2 years, then Las Vegas for 2 years, and then Alameda for 2 years. And then Alameda closed, and I was beside myself. I didn't know what I was going to do because I didn't know of any other middle school openings. And I was like, I'm ride or die middle school. And before I knew it, I ended up back at Capitol High, and I ended up loving it even more than middle school. But middle school always has an amazing place in my heart.
What is it about it? And I went into it in the last episode, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but I just feel like it is such a unique point in a kid's life. And I mean, I'm sure anyone with middle schoolers knows that it can also be one of the most trying times as a parent. So what was it for you that really made you like that 7th, 8th grade middle school year?
So for me, I think that a big part of it is I have sort of the personality of a 13-year-old boy. And so I really, I understand them. They're so funny, and everything they do it makes me laugh. And I love laughing, and I love having my kids laugh with me, and sometimes they laugh at me. But yeah, it's just this connection that you have, that they're just such a weird age, and they're going through all of these changes, and it's okay to go through it, and, and have someone who's not afraid to go through it, with you or help guide you through it. And not necessarily as like a strict figure, but as someone that's like, oh, that happened. That's okay. That's normal.
Almost more like laid back, where you can, I don't want to say roll with the punches, but like you understand kind of the ebbs and flows that they go through, and you don't judge them based on, oh, well, they're having a bad day. This is who they are. Like with middle schoolers, you kind of have to rock with the boat, the ups and the downs, and really work with them and understand like a lot of what they're doing, a lot of what they're saying, a lot of how they're acting, they are figuring out themselves.
Exactly right. And they don't know who they are from day to day. And so you just have to accept that every day is a brand new day, and you just got to love them no matter what. And I did. I loved my kiddos. What
was it like for you, just kind of moving on to when you went to Capitol? What was it like for you to go back and teach at the school that you graduated from?
It was weird. It was really, really weird. I had the good fortune of having Laura Carthy as my mentor teacher at that time. Again, I had never had any other position other than middle school, so I was really nervous. Yeah, thank God for her, because the things that I would do with my middle school students, I'm a very structured person when it comes to teaching, and just how I would organize my classroom. And she was like, girl, you got to let that go or you're going to end up in a locker. And I was like, okay, so I can't line my students up, outside my door alphabetical by last name. She's like, no. So it was, it was a learning experience, but I had a great time. And after my first couple days, I'm like, I love high school. High school's great.
Were you doing the freshmen, sophomores, or junior, seniors?
Actually, that year I had sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Oh. So I was teaching 3 preps, and I was teaching all English at that time.
Okay. And is that what you were teaching at middle school as well, was English?
No. In fact, I started teaching German when I was a middle school teacher. Yeah.
They had German?
They had German. Yep, they sure had German. We actually had a German principal at DeVargas. So she was the one who initially hired me. So I taught German, and I also taught reading.
Is your German still good?
No.
You lost it all?
I have no one to talk to.
So it just became...
Yeah, I think if I was dropped into a situation, I could probably find myself pretty quickly, but... Yeah, it is rustier than a nail.
What surprised you most about teaching high school? And I think not many of the people that I've had on, just kind of running it back through my head, a lot of people have been either elementary or middle school. I don't think we've really had anyone that has taught high school. What was kind of the biggest surprise that you experienced when you moved up to high school?
I think I didn't give the kiddos enough credit, because there's a certain amount of structure and discipline that goes into working with middle school students. And I didn't realize that at the high school level, the students really do regulate themselves. And so I had to really relax and and just give them credit and know that they're going to get it done. They might need a little prodding, but things will get done.
While you were teaching, what was kind of the biggest thing that you would hang your hat on? Like if you had to summarize the kind of teacher you were, I don't want to give you a word or a sentence, but if you kind of had to describe the type of teacher you were, what would you say was kind of your ethos as a teacher?
That's a big one. I like to think that I could get pretty much any student to produce work and work that they could be proud of. And, my kiddos all had varying levels. And it was just like, I know that this is kind of where you are. Let me try to get you as high as I can. I don't expect you to be like this other kid. Totally look at everybody differently. And I try to give them ownership of their own work. So for me, it was trying to build them up where they were at and make them be proud or allow them to be proud of the work that they produced.
I think it's because I've known you and we become friends, but you give off the vibe of a teacher that was very easily approachable. You knew how and when to push kids to be their best, but also was kind of had that open door policy where after school kids could come and talk to you and stuff like that. Would you say that that's pretty accurate representation?
Ooh, I think my students would disagree with that. I was pretty much a no smiling until Thanksgiving kind of teacher.
Really?
But after that, it was all bets were off. We had a good old time. So for me, structure is really important at the beginning. And it's like, I have been told I can be very imposing and kind of frightening. You know me in a whole different context.
Yeah, I must, because that's not the Sonya Gunter that I know.
But as soon as that mask comes off and we've gotten through that sort of honeymoon period, then I let really my true personality out. And then at that point, I feel like I'm so much more approachable. But definitely at the beginning, it's like, oh, no, you will do it like this. And, the kids, for the most part, are, they'll comply. I hardly ever had classroom management issues. I can say with all certainty, I never sent a kid to the office at Capitol High the whole time that I was there as a teacher. When I was an administrator there, of course, I had to dole out punishments. But certainly as a teacher, I never sent a kid to the office. It's just everybody figured me out pretty quickly.
So after you taught, as you just mentioned, you became an administrator. Mm-hmm. What was that change like? Because if you already didn't think you were going to become a teacher, did you think that you would ever be an admin at the school you graduated from?
Absolutely.
I guess it's probably not. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. So, teaching, just an inquiry, and then, wow, I have a career. And, my mentor, Chanel Wilson Segura, she was just like, Sonya, I want you to come up, be an instructional coach. And I'm like, okay, cool. And she's like, okay, now that you're an instructional coach, I need you to get your admin license because I'm building a pipeline. Okay, cool. And the reception that I received from the faculty and staff when they announced me really made me feel like I can do this. I can be that good soldier to that administrative team, to such a strong leader. And so, yeah, it was a great experience. I'm glad that I had it.
There is something to be said about the support that you get from your colleagues and coworkers. And when you can get that support of your coworkers behind you, that they believe in you and that they see in you, that really kind of allows you to kind of take a deep breath and say, oh, I can do this, instead of what do they think about me? Am I good enough? Are they going to like me? Are they going to do they think that I'm right for this? I think that's really important to hear that, your coworkers, especially at that school, you had come up as a teacher there. So they were your colleagues, and then moving into an admin kind of in a way became their boss in a way.
I did. And one of the kind of interesting pieces were some of the teachers that are even still working right now. They were teachers at the school when I was a student there. And so moving from student to colleague to essentially supervisor for some of those teachers, that was it would have seemed strange under any other circumstance, but they never made me feel weird about it. They were always very supportive of me. I try to be supportive of them. And luckily it worked out.
I couldn't imagine supervising someone who taught me like algebra.
It was weird at the beginning. It was definitely weird.
Makes my skin crawl, like having to be like, oh yeah, I supervise like the guy who gave me an F once in like a math class or in a geometry class or something like that. What kind of was the hardest thing for you when you transitioned to being an admin?
Not being able to take control. So when you're in the classroom, you have full control of what goes on in there. And when you're an administrator, you're watching things. So you're taking control. It's from a different angle. It's not so localized. It's more of like a over control. It's just very different. And I'm
a control freak.
I'm not a control freak. I have like maybe a smidge of type A in me, like a little tiny bit. I like a little control in my life. And so yeah, that's the hardest part. When you're doing an observation and you see kids behaving like maniacs and you're wanting to get up and just be like, you need to sit down. And, but you're like, no, hold it together. Just keep, taking your notes. But yeah, I'm so used to like just acting and, just jumping into action. And so that was one of the hardest things, is being able to let the teachers have their own classroom and not going in and, trying to take control of it.
When you left Capital, what was your next kind of path after you left being an admin?
I was the AVID and Career Tech Education Coordinator for the district. And that was a lot of fun. I am a huge advocate of the AVID program and college programming, but I also equally am a huge champion of CTE. And I see it from both angles. Both my husband and I have advanced degrees. I also see my parents, who are pure CTE professionals. They have a landscaping business. They're not college graduates. And so I see how successful they are. And, you can't really measure who is more successful based on the amount of degrees one person has. It's all relative. And so for me, that was a great position because I got to learn so much about what we offer as a district. I was able to find different funding sources to be able to, buy different materials and machines for the different CTE programs, as well as also help with the with AVID being mostly college prep. They're now moving into college and career prep. But
I think that's really interesting. And that's something that I kind of see. And I've never really thought about it. But the trades side of things is like, my dad did not graduate college. I don't even think he spent a day in a college classroom. And he was able to get into a kind of trade type of work. He works for an insurance company. He worked on cars. He did body shop stuff and has just been able to kind of move and become, pretty successful and without having a college degree. My mom didn't finish her college, and she got in and she was able to do really well for herself. And I think that's something that a lot of people, I think it's kind of a misconception. I know we at the district have done a really good job kind of the CCTE, the college and career technical education, preparing kids for college or careers. And I think that's really important to emphasize, because so many people get caught up in, oh, do you have a degree? Do you have a master's? Do you have a doctorate? Are you this? Are you that? Is your degree in this and that? And it's, a degree doesn't mean that you are necessarily always qualified to do anything. Obviously, I would love my doctor to have a doctorate degree, but do I need the, mechanic that is working on my car to be a doctor of auto mechanic? If I know that this guy's been working on cars for 15 years, that should be good enough. And I think we do a really good job at the district emphasizing the CCTE stuff with ECO and some of the other programs. I think Capital is known for the biomed, but Santa Fe High is culinary. It's really built out, and I think it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah, I think hands-on learning is really the way to go. I am a huge fan of hands-on learning, and I think anymore, if people want to go to college and get a college degree, I think that's great. If they choose to go to a trade school or go straight into the workforce, I think that is great too. There's success. Everybody's definition of success is very different. And I don't think that we need to hang our hat on that old idea of like, you need to go to college and then you'll get a good job. No, I know lots of people with college degrees that do not have good jobs.
I mean, when I graduated college, I was making less than my wife who did not go to college. And it was like that for a handful of years. For the majority of our early relationship, she was making more money than I was. And I had a college degree, went to school for 4 years, did everything that I was supposed to do. And then you're taught when you go to college, oh, well, when you graduate college, you're going to make upper 5 figures into 6 figures. And that is just not the case ever.
Exactly. And when I graduated from college, I had a BA in German and a minor in film. So as you can imagine, my job opportunities were for a very specific market.
Mine was in cinematography, so I know that wholeheartedly. You left the Avid and then became the Chief Data and Analytics Officer.
Yes.
This is probably very different and, again, something that you never saw yourself doing. So for those who don't know, what does your department do?
So we are an input and output department. So I have one team, the student data team, and every time you register your kiddos for school or your kiddo needs a schedule made, anything like that, that is one department. My other the other team that I have is the data and analytics department. So if you need to know demographics or, when transcripts are produced, that sort of thing, that comes out of the other department. So we're definitely an input and output department.
You're the numbers department.
We are the numbers department. So, and we watch those numbers very carefully as I'm always about my numbers and what's going on.
Well, and you're about your whiteboards and all of your charts and your graphs. And we always joke that when you are at your whiteboard, you look like Charlie from Always Sunny. The meme
a cigarette and a cup of coffee. Oh.
Yeah. And like just pointing and he's got all the things tied together. Like that's how I feel like you are sometimes when you're sitting in front of your whiteboard. But as we sit next to your whiteboard here, you have charts and graphs. And even at the old office, I remember that you were like, I need whiteboards everywhere. I need to draw things out. Like that's how you process things. So I don't think I could think of a better fit for you than something that uses a lot of whiteboards like this.
Colored markers. That's my big deal. I think that's just the teacher in me, and I am a very visual person. So as I'm working on a problem, I often have to draw it out. So I keep sketch pads around, big Crayola, the big fat markers, because I have to really draw out what I'm thinking and how I want to approach a problem. So yeah, I need my colors. I need my dry erase boards.
It's fascinating watching your brain work sometimes.
Like, what the heck's going on in there? I'm like, I don't know, madness. We're going to figure out this problem.
When the dry eraser starts smoking, that's when I know like things are going south really quick. So one of the things that I really like to use this podcast for is to really get to know people in the district, get to know about them and kind of how they got to where they are and just get to know them. And you might have one of the more unique hobbies of anyone in the district. In your free time, you do taxidermy.
I do taxidermy on small animals. Yes, and it's humane.
How do you get into that?
I just took a class one time. I said I am going to take a class and learn how to taxidermy. So, my first project was a small mouse, and I've since done other mice. I most recently completed a 2-headed duckling. There are no 2-headed ducklings unless it's like some, abnormal mutant. Exactly. Yeah. Something from Los Alamos. But yeah, I recently did that. That was my last project. And it's really difficult because the animals are so small and you have to be so gentle with them. And so that way you don't make any mistakes.
Is it relaxing for you or is it is it more of a relaxing thing or is it more challenging, like stimulating?
Actually, both. So one, you have to figure out how you're going to do it, right? So there's definitely like the planning involved. But more than that, it's really taking your time, making your cuts, removing the insides. When I get the specimens, I get them as a whole being. And for anybody who's worried, the mice are the frostbitten mice that even the snakes won't eat from the pet store. Okay, so before people start like, you're so weird. I am weird, but I try to go the most humane route when I work with certain animals. But yeah, so you just have to be really thoughtful. You don't want to ever puncture anything that's going to make a mess on the hide. And then there's the creative piece afterward, after it's stuffed, and the way you get to dress it up. And yes, my mice have wigs, and I make them outfits, and sometimes I animate them and make them sing opera. You're going to have to follow me on Facebook if you want to see that. Her name is Esmeralda, and she's a star.
How do you wake up one morning and just say, I want to make a two-headed duckling? Like, what was kind of the thought process behind that? Because I can see like the mice and the dress up and the stuff like that, but to kind of reconfigure and make a completely new being, that was interesting.
I would like to say that was all me, but it wasn't. It was actually a class that I took.
Okay.
Yes, it was a class, and it was specifically a two-headed duckling class. And so you get a little duckling carcass, and then you get a little head with a little neck, and you get to work, and you merge it into one. Stop looking at me like that. You're lucky I don't bring them here to work and have them all around.
I would not visit you if I walked in and there was just a two-headed duckling that greeted me when I walked into your office. So to wrap up, because there's no better way to wrap up an episode than talking about taxidermy, I end the podcast with the same question, kind of pulling it all back into education and teaching. What was the best piece of advice or guidance that you have ever received from a teacher?
Be your best self every day. And I got that from Miss Holmes. She was my AP English teacher. And, I was working really hard in my writing skills, and I really wanted to pass the test. And, she was just like, just go out and just be your best self. That's all you can do. You can just try your hardest. And you can go to bed at night knowing that you did the best that you could. And as long as you feel like you've always done your best, you're going to be okay.